Thursday night and make us wonder about Friday morning. Good evening, everyone. It's not over yet.
And that's first on Fox tonight. Enough already. It's been more than 12 hours now, and the ice is still falling in much of our region. The evening rush hour tonight was more like the evening crawl for tens of thousands of people who made their way home from work tonight. The major roadways are passable right now, but many secondary roads are in very bad shape, and depending on where you are, they could be even more treacherous in the morning. In Wilmington, an early coating of ice and snow greeted motorists. Schools closed early and businesses sent workers home. Main roads were passable, but side streets were slick. And it was much of the same story in South Jersey today, where crews spent a good part of the day salting slippery roads. A sheet of ice covered many windshields and walkways, and commuters could be in for another icy mess in the morning. Here's Frank now with more on that and first weather.
Jill, I wish I could stand here and tell you things are getting better. Actually, they are not. Temperature hasn't budged for the past 7 hours here in Philadelphia. We've been hovering in the mid-20s. We're seeing lots of ice and snow out to the west of us. That is going to continue overnight. We need to get our temperature to 33 degrees. Let's take a look at some of the temperatures now. We're basically in the 20s with the exception of South Jersey. That means several more hours of ice for the morning. Look for rain down the shore and possibly making its way into Delaware and Philadelphia counties. Ice terrain in the northern and western suburbs. Mix that with a little bit of snow as you head up to the north and west. We should have a lot of travel problems tomorrow morning, and school openings are in question as we speak, so we're going to keep you up to date a little bit later in the newscast. Rich?
All right, Frank, the good news has been that all day and evening, the major roadways have been in pretty good shape. Road crews in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Delaware hit the roads with salt last night before the ice moved in, but that's not to say that travel was easy. George Mallet has been out and about all evening. He joins us now from the Schuylkill Expressway with the latest. George, how are things looking?
Well, Rich, let me just bring you up to date. First of all, as we speak, there is quite a bit of ice standing on sections of Interstate 95, particularly the elevated areas. And the same is true of the Schuylkill Expressway and a lot of the roads west and north of Center City. There is, if not ice, slush standing on the roads. And obviously, if things don't warm up overnight, and Frank seems to indicate it's not going to warm up much, a lot of this stuff could get solid, and it could, in fact, be a mess tomorrow morning. That said, the early evening rush hour really didn't turn out all that bad, and this story, is one which could have been worse. Rush hour started early. By 3:30, there was a steady flow of homebound traffic on Market Street as some Center City businesses closed up shop.
I'm on my way. We got out early, about an hour early from work.
Do you have to drive?
I'm actually taking New Jersey Transit, so I don't have to drive, but it'll probably be about a 2-hour commute home.
Those sidewalks were being cleared of ice, snow, or whatever it was falling on this gray afternoon. The damp, cold wind was enough to slow pedestrians. Those arriving in the city for work on the second shift warned of a challenging commute ahead. What was it like coming in?
Miserable, man. Everything is slippery up the way. Everything's running slow. Everything is running slow. Everybody's staying home. Except some of us got to go to work.
Yes, secondary roads, including this stretch in Roxborough, were covered by a thick layer of ice. But the major highways, including I-95 and the Blue Route, appeared to be no more snarled than usual. PennDOT crews were out in force after the evening rush, salting and plowing along all the major highways.
It's been a long couple of days. We started Wednesday at about 10 o'clock. We've been continuing through the night at nonstop. Our men have been working through lunch hour breaks. Like I said, our main concern is to make sure everything's okay for the people to be driving on our highways and everything's clear.
Martino says PennDOT will keep a close eye on all area highways, continuing to salt elevated roads until temperatures rise above the freezing mark. And when I talked to Nick Martino, he was actually hoping that the temperatures would increase somewhat and they might be able to get something of a break tonight. But just a few minutes ago, we had a PennDOT crew come through here spreading salt and plowing the Schuylkill Expressway. So obviously, this is shaping up to be a long night for the PennDOT crews. Live on the Schuylkill Expressway, George Mallet, Fox News. Back to you.
George, I see on the ramp behind you cars are moving fine. Is the Schuylkill right below you there? Is that what you're looking at?
And I don't know whether you can make it out or not, but there is a very thin layer of, if not ice, slush standing on the Schuylkill as we speak.
All right, George, thanks a lot. Appreciate it. Safe getting back. Well, ice on the wings of an aircraft can be disastrous, and that meant delays today at airports in the path of this ice storm. At Philadelphia International, there were some delays and cancellations tonight. Almost all of the trouble was caused by weather problems at other airports. Most people who called ahead this evening were glad they did.
I talked to a computer. I didn't talk to any humans, but the computer verified that the flight is on schedule. I can't wait to get there to the 85-degree weather.
That was Leo Kelly. He's a roller hockey player. These children are off to Disney World. They are headed to the airport tomorrow. If you're headed to the airport tomorrow morning, call 1-800-PHL-GATE to make sure your flight's on time. Amtrak reported few delays today, but it might be wise to call ahead tomorrow morning if you're taking a morning train. The number is 1-800-USA-RAIL.
Snow and sleet made for a slow day today on roads in the Garden State. The major roads were passable with little problem, but the secondary roads were a mess. Susan Bueller is out tonight in Pennsauken. Susan, how's it look now?
Jill, it is just a miserable night to be out here. It's cold, it's rainy, it's raw. It is not a night that you want to be outdoors unless you have to, unless, say, you're a tow truck driver or a police officer. We're live at the Pennsauken Police Department tonight where we followed officers who are on patrol in the worst weather.
Possible wires down. We're not sure what we have at the moment.
10-4.
Wires down, a messy and miserable night on the roads. The snow and sleet made it difficult and sometimes challenging for police officers and motorists in many New Jersey towns. In Pennsauken, the driver of this van was the victim of icy roads.
He said he was driving north on 130 in the center lane, and a car cut him off from the right lane, causing his vehicle to spin on the ice and hit the concrete barrier in the middle with the front of his car.
Tow truck drivers along major roads like Route 130 were also busy.
It's worse on an icy than it is when it's snowing. People don't realize that the road's black and the ice is black, and they end up wrapped around things.
This was one of several accidents tonight in Pennsauken. Fortunately, the driver wasn't injured. We rode along with Officer Chris Salzbach, who in one night usually handles dozens of accidents, especially in the snow, sleet, and freezing rain.
Snow is actually a lot better than the ice and the sleet that we've had today. In the beginning of the shift, we had quite a few accidents. Now it's starting to slow up a little bit.
Overall, road crews kept the major highways clear. It wasn't a bad night on the roads. In Pennsauken, there were fewer than a dozen accidents. But in miserable weather, Officer Salzbach is doing a job most people don't envy. Most people don't envy him at all, I'll tell you, and I'm one of them because I'm standing out here in the snow, the sleet, and the freezing rain. It is a rough night out here. Everybody thought that the ice storm was going to be a little bit worse and that the major roads would be bad. But let me tell you, it's the side streets and the sidewalks that you have to worry about. Take a look at this. This is the sidewalk at the Pennsauken Police Department. It is solid ice, and it is still coming down at this hour. Very slippery and very much still freezing rain out here. Everyone is hoping that the temperature warms up a bit and that morning rush hour is nothing like it is tonight. Live in Pennsauken, I'm Susan Bueller. Rich, Jill, back to you.
All right, Susan, be careful coming back to the station. Well, will it ever stop snowing in Buffalo? That city received 5 more inches of snow today. They usually get 93.2 inches of snow per year. But as of Wednesday, they received more than half that, 52 inches in January alone. But there's little sign that city is shutting down. It has, for the most part, remained completely open and functioning. Residents were not so ambitious in some parts of Pennsylvania, though, where they're choosing not to venture out at all into the snowy, slippery weather. In Pittsburgh, beaten down by 2 weeks of stinging cold, many people called in sick and stayed home from work today. Pittsburgh temperatures range from 17 to 32 degrees with freezing rain, sleet, and more snow.
While millions of Americans dealt with the winter weather today, President Bill Clinton went on trial in the United States Senate. Today, Republican prosecutors began laying out their case against him. Some of them want the president to appear at the impeachment trial. The White House says that won't happen. Rita Cosby joins us now live from Capitol Hill with the latest. Rita?
Good evening, Rich. It has been a dramatic day here in Washington with House managers opening their case against President Clinton, saying he repeatedly put himself above the law. Before a jury of 100 silent senators, Republican House prosecutors made their case as to why President Clinton should be removed from office.
Failure to bring President Clinton to account for his serial lying under oath and preventing the courts from administering equal justice under law will cause a cancer to be present in our society for generations.
Time now for Weather Center at the Weather Channel. We'll look across the country. First of all, we'll talk about the happenings in the western U.S. in a few moments. A little bit of light snow for Chicagoland and rain in the southeast. We'll start with the worst of the problems throughout New England. It's going to be a long, long day, many areas. Things are starting to rev up a little bit. Even the area of low pressure kicking across the Carolinas starts to intensify just a bit, kind of wrapping things in here. A little more aggressive fashion, bringing some moisture and some more intensity further north. And the system kind of becoming what's called a kind of a negative tilt starting to set up, where it's starting to really wrap it in and moving northward. Could bring a lot of potential for some freezing further north, including especially in Allentown, Pennsylvania. We'll be surprised at all to see a major icing event taking place here. As far as the snow that has been on through Thursday evening, pretty heavy snows have been reported so far in Albany. In Boston, 7 inches, reporting some sleet and some snow presently. Even Rhode Island, we had a little bit of additional snowfall. Well, further north, here's the deal. A little bit of a snowfall continues, parts of Vermont, New Hampshire, and even upstate New York. Throughout Maine, it's all snow. You see where the orange shading is? That indicates where we're dealing with some freezing rain. That's going to continue yet longer. Moisture kind of overrunning the warm front of the surface, kind of warm up there, starts to fall as rain, and then lands where we have a very shallow layer of cold air at the surface. That's the deal. Again, Allentown, Pennsylvania, your air temperature now around 17 degrees. And you've got rain, and you've got a lot of moisture moving your direction. I'll show you that in a moment, but it could be a major icing event just a bit to the west of New York City Metro. It could be a really, really rough time with that here. Freezing precipitation still tonight being seen. Times around Worcester, we saw some freezing rain earlier, now change over to all snow over the past hour. Around Boston, again, some sleet and snow reported here. Around Providence and also elsewhere throughout Rhode Island, reporting a bit of freezing rain, a little snow toward Hartford. Around New York City Metro, we do have a lot of freezing rain being reported, especially around LaGuardia and JFK. Expect more of this to move on toward us. Even Philadelphia reporting freezing rain off and on. I mentioned the Allentown area, a lot of moisture moving our way. As the system revs it up, this big patch of moisture moving our direction. As it does slide in, expect things to get a lot worse before they get better. Could be a really rough day here. We'll keep you on top of things even further, coming up in a few moments with a complete update on Storm Watch. Heaviest amounts of snow, well, you may see that in parts of upstate New York. Fairly light toward Chicago, but we'll make up for it in our amounts here. Fairly light, too, toward Pittsburgh and Cleveland. Here are the travel trouble spots here throughout the mid-morning hours. Again, rain mixing in, but right now still frozen precipitation problems around Philadelphia, but our temperatures are warming. We should change over to rain shortly. Southeastern U.S., expect more rain to continue. That front is kicking toward the coast. That will eventually drag more moisture away, let things quiet down a bit, but still could see some strong rumbles of thunder. That may linger longer to the Cape Hatteras area and throughout the Outer Banks, a chance of more strong weather. Upper Midwest, a little fog, too, in parts of Iowa. Some light snowfall being reported into parts of Minnesota, and it's very light, too, around Chicago. Don't expect an all-day snow, just a little additional dusting in many areas. Around O'Hare, around Midway, around DuPage, many areas around Chicago seeing snowfall, including toward South Bend, at times Milwaukee, light snow. Western parts of Minnesota, light snow continues for us. Eventually, Minneapolis, we might see some light snow from this, but the freezing rain potential will be a part of our day for the afternoon for the commute home. And potentially kind of rough here with some freezing precipitation into western parts of Minnesota. Northwest, here's our front ashore and more moisture coming at us throughout our day and over the next few days. Fairly wet time here. Around Portland, it's been pretty damp all night. More rain continues. Troutdale, Hillsborough areas, southward toward Medford, rain off and on. Around the Bay Area, pretty wet overnight here. More rain coming through around Interstate 82, on towards Sacramento, on toward Reno. Very wet. Snowfall fairly light for the most part across the west. Some spots in Idaho, potentially in the 6 to 12-inch range. Here's the radar showing our active weather across the country. In the northeast, well, things are the most active here. That's where things are pretty rough. Along the front, mild air lingers. Here's a cold front, leading edge of a colder air mass. Here lies the cooler air, so a little milder ahead of it. That's why things won't be too bad with the temperatures overnight. Parts of South Georgia, the Carolinas, and especially into South Florida. But this front will eventually usher rain toward us. Tampa, even Orlando area, and further south toward Miami before the day is over. Front brings more rain throughout north parts of California and central California during the day. But here we go. The system will eventually move on, but in the meantime, it's going to dump a lot of rain around New York City and Boston and northern and western areas. Around the suburbs there, could be dealing with a lot more in the way of some frozen precipitation, a lot of snow to fall for upstate New York, eventually on the move, but slowly. Here's the heaviest amounts of snow, 6 to 8 inch amounts expected. far as the warmth goes, you may find that in parts of Texas, southeast and the southwest. We'll get travel-wise next. Please stay tuned.
Thank you.